Okay.
I'll abstain. I wasn't here for the meeting.
Oh, okay. Joe, can you just mark that? Okay, thanks. Okay, why don't we just go right to the business plan or business incentive policy. Ray, can you just walk us through the changes?
Okay. I'm just going to go through my memo dated today, June 16th. As requested, I've attached a draft of the revised business incentive policy. I've highlighted in yellow all the additions and revisions, and I've also highlighted in green the procedural changes as well as some of the changes in the abatement terms that we had kind of brushed over the past year or so. Their procedural changes involve shifting the review of the abatement applications from the Economic Development Commission to the Economic Development Subcommittee of the Town Council, while also identifying town staff involved in the initial intake and the initial evaluation of the applications, being me, the town manager, the town assessor, and the mayor. The premise of the change is based on the fact that the tax abatement evaluations are essentially a financial function with ultimate powers of decision resting with the town council, as authorized by the Connecticut General Statutes. I've also identified the town's abatement options in 3 simple paragraphs, as opposed to the chart that we hand out identifying the 6 financial categories. Yep. Time has proven that the chart is confusing to potential applicants because it has too many options, and I consolidated the options into these 3 paragraphs. And also, I've added an attempt to better define the abatement amounts and the time periods. I recommended a minimum cost of improvement of $100,000 as opposed to the statutory allotment of $25,000. The $25,000 is allowed, but it's not required. The town isn't required to do anything with a $25,000 cost. Right. And also, even with $100,000 of improvement, it's questionable how much of that would increase in assessed value anyways.
We don't have any legal problems by bumping up to 100.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No.
Was that checked with Morris?
No.
No, it wasn't.
Not yet, but
okay.
We can't. The statutes allow the town to do X, Y, and Z. It doesn't require them to do X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
Under the abatement uses, I've added retail and mixed uses as eligible uses for tax abatements.
Yeah, mixed uses especially.
And then I've made some minor adjustments to the actual application that we use, just kind of reformatting it a bit. So if you look through the first page of the policy, we have tax. It has an introductory paragraph I haven't changed at all. Tax incentives, and I added uses, and we go down the list: office, manufacturing, warehouse, storage, or distribution, information technology. And then I've added retail, mixed-use developments, and then recreational facilities. Under the terms, those 3 paragraphs I mentioned, abatements, the town council can approve up to 100%. It could be 10%. It could be anything from 1% to or nothing to up to 100% of the increased assessed value of real property as a result of all improvements therein or thereon. May be abated for a period up to 7 years, provided the cost of the improvements is not less than $3 million. For example, we did Burris. Their cost of improvement was well over $3 million, but we did a 3-year 20%. Yes. So that still gives us the flexibility. Up to 50% of the increased assessed value as a result of improvements for a period up to 5 years for improvements of not less than $500,000. And then the last category would be, again, 50% of the increased assessment for a period up to 3 years for improvements that cost not less than $100,000.
Just out of curiosity, where would Arborg fall in this new range that you've?
They would probably be in the $3 million category.
They'd be over. They're over 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let's say for the sake of argument that a company comes in, meets with you and with other staff and requests an abatement.
Mm-hmm.
Do you and Barbara or the town manager, whoever the town manager is, still basically have the responsibility of making a recommendation to this committee?
Yes.
All right. What's the role of the Economic Development Commission in the process?
There wouldn't be one.
There is none.
No.
Okay, so we no longer go through them.
Correct.
Okay.
As we had discussed in past meetings, the reason being again, it's financial. Plus, it really seems like an added step in a process because EDC, as for example with Burris, they said 5 years, 50%. Our recommendation was 3 years, 50%.
I remember.
It's up to the town council. The town council could have said 5. They could have said 3. They could have said no thanks. So that time in between, before it got to the town council, was a waste of time for that company.
Okay. Is there any, just scanning through this, what does this do to the timetable? Does it speed up the process? I know by yanking EDC out of the process, that'll cut down the time as well. But what about once an application reaches you? What kind of a time frame are we looking at before a recommendation comes to the council? Basically, I mean, ballpark.
Well, within a month, it could be.
Okay.
And I see that this is a step closer to the town council. I see it as opposed to another commission. Because you are town councilor, so
Right.
It's that much closer, that much more definitive at this stage than it would be otherwise, and at least would get a very good feel of whether or not the proposal had a chance at that point.
Okay. Questions from the committee? Dave?
Ray, if this committee doesn't meet, if they don't have a quorum and they can't meet, can your recommendation go directly to the town council then?
No, not under this proposal.
So it would have to come to this committee
Yeah.
first before it can go, okay.
Yeah.
Questions?
Ray, the number 4 under additional criteria for consideration, conformance to the Rocky Hill Plan of Conservation Development. I'd just like to throw it out there to get some feedback on this. I'd like to see that one elevated up to the top. It has to be in conformance with the Plan of Conservation and Development. That seems like that's all encompassing of zoning regulations, design and review board, inland wetlands.
Yeah, we can put that up under, we can move that right up under the top 4 above that. The project must meet certain criteria established by the town, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe you want to take that out and put it on that, underneath that.
What's the committee's thoughts on that?
I got no problem with
Yeah,
it.
no, I think
That's
fine.
our playbook.
Sure.
We
So
spend-
instead of being an additional criteria,
It
it
would be
would become part of
one of the
the
substantial.
initial
You can
criteria.
put that at number 1 if you want. Just so you know, though, we would probably get an abatement request before it got to planning and zoning, because a lot of times they don't want to go through the process if they know they will not get an abatement. But we can still, I'll be talking to Kim, and we can have Kim involved to do a quick analysis of the plan of POCD. It's not an issue. So we'll take that out and relocate it.
I don't know if you done?
Yeah,
Oh.
for now.
Very good point. Just 2 quick questions, and the first one is, as someone new and reading this just the last couple of days. Would it be possible, Ray, to get a black line version of the old policy to this policy? I know you attempted to try to do it with some highlights, but whenever we have a change in a policy, I would really like to see the 04 policy as it exists. Black line the stuff you're taking out and add in the new stuff.
Yeah.
And if there's any changes, I'm sure, I don't know if there were any changes to either the percentages or the dollar amounts, maybe an explanation as to why. But I think that would help me understand the changes. And then the other part is I would also like to see a pro forma what your recommendation to the council would be. Not a I guess I'm a little confused as to what the actual deliverable would be from you to the council. I understand the application and I understand the data they would have. I would assume we would have a standardized process and reporting template that you would complete with your recommendation that would show the tax impact and all the other stuff, and that would be served up to the council. So for myself, I would like to see something like that.
I'll send a copy of the one we did for Harburg, the last one we did.
I would do it with whatever the new process, or whatever the new form, whatever ties to your new form, because you have a new application, right? Or it's changes to an application. So I just want to make sure whatever if that's going to be substantially the same as what one would come under a new application, that's fine. But I would just like to see exactly if this is what you are purporting to be, what's going to be given to the council for any of these things. I would like to just see a template of that. And you can do a pro forma.
So if I could interject, for example, if it says the project must increase the local tax base, somewhere there would be the data on how it's increasing the local tax base.
Right. I've done it for the last three,
Sure.
to the EDC, and then actually my recommendations have gone to the town council.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
For,
because
for your resolutions. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Bill, I didn't.
No, that's it. That's
Okay.
Thank you.
Under the process for approval, we skip down to number 8. Provision for recovery of losses by the town in the event that the conditions of the tax agreement are not fulfilled, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Is there some way that that paragraph can be fleshed out a little bit, in particular with respect to employment estimates? And the reason I raise the question is that at the state level, with the governor's First 5 program, there have been instances where the state has granted money or loaned money to an enterprise, and the enterprise has indicated in the initial step that they're going to create 500 jobs within, 2-3 years. And it doesn't happen. And it's become kind of fuzzy at the state level as to whether the state is then obligated to go after the money that was either granted or loaned to that enterprise because they didn't meet their employment goals, or whether they're just kind of give them another chance or give them another year or so. It seems to me that that's fuzzy at the state level, and what I really would not want to see is that kind of fuzziness allowed to exist at our level. If McDonald comes in and says, I'm going to open up a new company here, and you will have 200 new jobs in 2 years, but I need $1 million to get going. And then all of a sudden, 2 years passes, and he's got 35 new jobs. What kind of teeth do we have to go back to McDonald's and say, hey, we want the $1 million back. You didn't meet your goal. Is there some way to take that paragraph 8, and in other words, and put teeth in it?
I'm thinking we can leave paragraph 8 because these are general conditions. And then in the actual resolution that the town council passes, like we've done in the past, we have these boilerplate, then we have additional conditions specific to the actual request. For example, maybe it's not based on 200 jobs, but it's really based on building an 80,000 square foot building that's going to increase the assessed value by, $2 million as opposed to the number of jobs. Maybe it's a distribution facility or a warehouse that has a lot of value. So it has to be tailored specific. So we could say if it's a job-driven tax abatement, well, part of it is based on jobs. Because jobs won't increase the assessed value, but the actual infrastructure will. We can add in our conditions in the resolution. We can make that a specification. We can call that out, saying at the end of the abatement period, company X, Y, and Z shall provide proof of employment of 200.
All right, so in other words,
jobs.
instead of putting the teeth in the policy,
Well, the policy has
you're
a general
saying
statement.
is make the teeth part of whatever resolution comes to the council for approval of McDonald's plan to create
Yeah.
a new company and 200 jobs.
Right.
Make it part of that resolution instead.
Because, like I said, not every application is going to be tied to.
No, I know, yeah,
Job creation.
maybe something besides the
Or you can
jobs.
even tie it to, okay, it's based on a 60,000 square foot office building, and they come to find out they can only afford to build half of it or 25,000. It's gone.
Right.
The abatement is specific to the request.
Okay, any questions, Bill or Frank, on how that process would work to make sure that the town has enforcement ability?
Well, it's easy to see prior to them getting the check. Not the check, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But once they get it in hand, what's the process for getting it back?
That's why I think that terms and conditions, which is I think what you're talking about, really needs to be robust enough when it comes to the council, so we know exactly what the, exit plan would be for the town for this. So maybe Morris or whoever it is could mock up what he thinks one would look like as an example.
Well, my basic question is, are you guys comfortable with putting the teeth not in the policy, but in a specific resolution as it applies to a specific company?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
You're okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. Dave?
I would think you got to go by each different project, because what Ray's saying, it may not
Okay.
tie to.
That's a good point.
You can almost have incentive or disincentive clauses in that.
Okay, as long as that's taken into account.
Without having the specifics of the application, it'd be tough to try to identify everything in the policy.
I'm just thinking maybe we ought to add a sentence to Section 8 that you don't deliver, we're coming after you. Something like that, something subtle.
I can try to strengthen that a bit. Put number 8, I'll try to strengthen.
Yeah, if you can add some language, fine. If it's not feasible or if it's going to muddy the policy itself, then don't do it. No, leave it up to your judgment. You've dealt with stuff like this before. You know how to word it. Okay, any other questions on the policy itself?
No, on the last page of the policy, just before you get to the application, number 3, the highlight. We didn't have this is an addition because we've spoken to a few property owners, or a few applicants, I should say, who were interested in leasing. And the question always came up, well, how do I'm going to be putting in, $3 million worth of fit out into my building. How does the tax abatement work for me?
Oh, okay.
The tax abatement really has to go to the owner, and then we need a mechanism where we see the abatement, the benefit go passed down to the tenant who's actually paying for the fit out. And we'll have Morris work on that.
I was just going to say, presumably when Morris gets his hands on this, he'll advise as to whether or not that language is okay or whether that's got to be beefed up as well. Okay, so in terms of what we're doing at today's meeting, this is it's a review of a first draft, in effect. And what's your intention to revise the draft and get it back to us, or revise the draft and go directly to Morris and then bring the finished product back to us? What do you
Probably
want to
number
do?
two, right? Where you feel more comfortable with having Morris take a look at it before it gets back to you, before you can make a recommendation?
Personally, I would, but I don't know how you guys feel.
Well, we're only 2 weeks away from obtaining our tablets. I would like to see it on the tablet.
And that's beyond me.
I mean, I'm fine with it going both, concurrently, if you're going to be sending it to Morris as a copy to us as well. I think.
Okay, why don't we do it that way then? Get it to Morris, but copy us on Frank's tablets.
Joanne, can you make that a part of the record tablet? Discussed.
Okay. Bill, you want to go over your
I can quickly go over my report if you like.
yeah.
Yeah, the steep heading, I just kind of laid out a quick history in where we are now. Basically, we're out of money. We have a project that is almost shovel-ready, and we can't get any funding for it. In the last meeting, you indicated that if we do get money from steep, you'd like it to go towards starting the facade program again to help benefit businesses directly as opposed to highway construction. Business Park Phase 2, again, not really much movement. We're we're going to be coordinating a phone conference with OPM in Blumenthal's office, and us to kind of work out an avenue to maybe getting some bonding money. I don't know.
Why don't you, after that conference call, can you just post an email to the members of the committee to keep us up to date on what's happening with that, rather than wait till the next monthly report, because that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Foundry, as you know, the first public hearing for Planning and Zoning Commission is tonight. Wetlands had their hearing last week. This will be continued to next month.
And tonight,
The economic
Z gets their crack.
tonight.
How did the wetlands go? Do you have any feedback on any problems that might have surfaced?
For the most part, it went smoothly. There was a bit of opposition from some of the neighbors, but for the most part, I believe it was looked upon favorably at this point. But they need additional information, so the hearing was continued.
Yeah, what happened was, because I sat in on that one, some folks raised some questions. Some members of the commission, in the Wetlands Commission, raised some questions, and a few members of the public raised some questions. There was no organized opposition, let's put it that way. But the developer is going to have to come back with answers to these questions, and I'm sure the same thing is going to happen tonight with planning and zoning. Whether the public will come back for a second crack, I have no idea. But members of the commission are certainly going to have questions, and so it'll be continued. So this will go on for a while.
The applicants will be coming before the Economic Development Commission in January 9th, to do a presentation also.
Okay. Now, what's their role in?
I try to get some development proposals before them to garner support. A letter of support would be submitted for the record to Planning and Zoning, and sometimes the chairman will go to the meeting and speak on behalf of the application.
Okay.
And we look at it for benefit to the town, taxes, jobs, as opposed to what Planning and Zoning would be looking at.
Gotcha.
Town Center West, they're still in the Connecticut DOT traffic permit mode, going back and forth with plans to try to get their permit going. There are several letters of intent for leases, but they can't go any further until they get their permits from the state. That's really about it. If you have any questions on the activities,
No.
still working on the
Speak of the devil.
still working on the
I am. Excuse me. Hello, Ken. How are you?
still working on the business plan.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, how is that coming along?
It's coming along slowly because it's a lot of data input, and then I get taken off to do some grant work, and then the business forum we had was fairly successful. last Friday. Working with a local broker who has a client looking to build an 85,000 square foot building in town. You just have to find him a piece of property.
Excellent.
That's a hell of a report, Ray.
Thank you.
The land that's for sale on Route 3 in front of DATCO and then on the other corner, have there been any bites on that at all that you can talk about?
Yes, on the corner of.
And I would also like to bring up something we talked about on a particular piece of property about the waterway that happens to be there. That's almost on one corner, right near France Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
About maybe ahead of time, if we're looking to make that a more attractable building site, about putting a certain distance of that in culverts, so there's more frontage. Because I know that waterway, presents a problem for wetlands. It presents a problem for the landowner and the developer. They're always working around that one piece of property.
Right.
And if ahead of time, as a town, if we were proactive and had open discussion with the inland wetlands about doing exactly that, that might open the door for a different type of activity there.
How should we work on approaching? I can talk to Bob.
Yeah. At least under discussion, bring that out.
Yeah, I would think you'd have to talk to Alvarado and then have him bring it before the commission itself.
I'm by no means trying to prejudge the wetlands decision or feeling on that, but at least something that we should look at in the event someone might say, this lot is not attractive for me because of this. If there was a workaround.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good suggestion.
That type of thing always plays into if that were allowed, as you know from the days of wetlands, the disturbance that is potentially produced there can be mitigated in another area, usually in the same floodplain or review area.
Yeah, I just don't know if there's a hydrologic study on that to know if you can put it into a culvert and then where you'd be doing the mitigation on the wetlands you'd be.
But you don't have to do it there. You could do it off-site. You could do it at another location.
Mitigation off-site, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yes, there has been activity on the corner.
Okay, and I hesitate asking, but I will anyway. Anything new with our favorite white elephant?
I need to speak to Morris on that.
Oh, okay.
Trying to set up a meeting with him to discuss.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.